right, we're here. We're doing
Wow.
this.
Yep.
We decided.
Welcome to
Why
Nobody's
not?
Muses.
Welcome to Nobody's Muses. Warning content. We do curse.
And spoiler warning, we're
Yes.
going to talk about, well, this episode will be fine. We're not really going to talk about anything we've watched. We're going to talk, it's like an intro.
So what are we going to talk about?
Well, we're going to talk about Daisy Jones and the Six.
Excellent.
And
I'm so excited.
And we're going to talk about, this is basically what we're going to focus on for the next, I don't know, 7 or 8 weeks as we go through the release dates and see what they do, how they convert this really beloved book into a miniseries.
I'm so stoked.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah.
This is 30 plus years of friendship, harkening back to college days. I feel like I'm back on the air again.
I know.
Reliving those radio days of years gone by.
I was thinking about that. I was like, when was the last time Rachel wore like headsets and had a mic like this? Might have been.
We're gonna say 94 when I graduated from college.
Wow.
Yep, 94.
Wow.
So, but here we are, and we're going to talk about Daisy Jones and the Six.
Yes.
And I'm super excited about this. And I think you and I share a lot of common loves and interests. We both have a strong love of music and all that encompasses. We have a strong love of movie and television and friendship and books. And so it seems only right that we're gonna talk about this book, amongst other things.
And this whole thing kind of came about because I said we need to do a watch party. And then I was like, well, maybe we should just talk about it and we could record it. And we decided, well, why not share it with everybody?
Why not share it with everybody? They might find something insightful in what we say.
Yeah, or not.
As two 50-something Gen X women.
Yeah.
So you never know. We have smart things to say.
Yeah, we do. We
have smart things to say. We're clever.
If nothing else, later we can look back and listen to these and be like, oh, this is what we were like at 50.
There you go. And my kids, I'm going to be like, hey, look, your mom's cool. Again, she has a podcast.
Well, right. let's get into it. So
let's go.
If you are a reader of Daisy Jones and the Six, you will probably already know what we're referring to when we decided to name our podcast Nobody's Muses. But I would like to know from you, Rachel, like, what is it about this book that you really enjoyed? Like, why is this such a book that we obviously like a lot, or we wouldn't be doing a podcast about it?
So I think for me, it goes back to this long-standing obsession / love of all things Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac. And so when I started hearing rumblings about the book, a lot of people were saying, there's a connection there. It's kind of a similar, but not the same story, kind of connecting you back. And I think you and I both have a fandom for that whole Laurel Canyon phase of music, whether it's from the early 60s all the way in through the 70s. That love of that generation, multiple generations of music. But I think for me, it was that connection to Stevie Nicks and to Fleetwood Mac. And so I decided to give it a go. For me, I went straight to the audiobook. I have not actually read the physical book or even the ebook. I went straight into the audiobook. And for me, the last several years, I've found myself struggling to actually physically read books. So I do listen to a lot of audiobooks. And I picked this one up. I actually reserved it through Libby at the library and was waiting for it to pop up and come into my queue. And lo and behold, it showed up. And I can talk. It's funny. We'll see if we have time to talk about it, but kind of the timing of when it showed up in my queue. And I just jumped on it and started listening to it. And I will say, I did not listen to this until 2022. So I'm kind of late to the game, but still very, very much a fan. and jumped into some of her other books after I listened to that one. But yeah, I gave it a listen, fell in love with it, immediately started telling anybody that would listen to me about it. I kept posting on my social medias, you got to read this book. It's amazing. Kept telling anybody that would listen, go for the audiobook. If you listen to audiobooks, go for the audiobook. Don't just read the book, because the audiobook is something otherworldly to the typical audiobooks, I think.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean,
you?
yeah, I mean, I'm in a lot of nerdy TV Facebook groups, and somebody had posted that it was coming out, and then you posted about it pretty much like the same week. And when we saw each other, I think is when I don't know if it's when we went to see Six, or which is funny. Or maybe before, but and you said get the audiobook, and so I did. And and once I found out it was about kind of like the Laurel Canyon and Fleetwood Mac, especially because like I don't know how many times I've watched, there's it's called like classic albums, and it was a kind of documentary show about albums, and I have
Yes.
watched the Fleetwood Mac Rumors one and the Steely Dan um Asia, those so many times, and especially the Fleetwood Mac one.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, this is totally going to be up my alley. And so that's where I came to it. And I mean, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit. First of all, the audiobook I can't recommend enough, because it just immerses you in a way that I don't think that I mean, the text is quite good, but it makes it feel like a documentary.
Well, and
And
if you're sorry, go
and
ahead.
the acting in
Yeah.
it.
If you're an audiobook fan and you listen to a lot of audiobooks, you're
Yeah.
used to like the solo narration.
Mhm.
You might have a duo narration where they trade off on chapters, and then sometimes you'll get a duet where they're reading lines back and forth to each other. This is something completely different,
Right.
I think.
It's a radio play almost.
That's exactly what I think of. I think of what our parents grew up listening to, the
Yeah.
radio shows of yesteryear, where it truly is a radio play. And that's really what, to me, sets this audiobook apart from every other audiobook that I've listened to thus far, because it is a complete production. And you're right, the voices behind the audiobook are voices we know,
Yes.
that we're aware of, and they do an amazing job of acting out the story
Yeah.
for us to hear.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, I do think that makes it even more why it was impactful, because it was so well done. But I mean, for me, I'll tick off some of the reasons why it's such a big deal to me. We talk about a lot because you and I used to go see bands, and I would say we were groupie adjacent, because we weren't Pam
yes,
DeBar, we weren't sleeping with any of them, and we were
no.
seeing local Dallas bands that none of them really did much of anything. But we liked being at the front and standing, and I loved watching the music and just enjoyed the whole community of seeing local music.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the first day we met, the first night I went up to Denton, we went into and saw to the Gravity Room, and I don't remember what band we saw up
I
at
don't,
North
I
Texas.
don't either. Oh, Gravity Room. Oh, Gravity Room.
But so I related to that. But what I liked about it, and I think is that Daisy Jones's character is the whole thing of why we named this Nobody's Muse. She's nobody's muse. Like, she didn't want to just stand and watch the guys in the band. And like, all of my girlfriends, we thought the boys were cute and we wanted to date them, or maybe, a couple of my friends, they sold merch, but we didn't actually think we could be musicians.
Or you
And
wanted to sing backup.
I don't know why we didn't think that we could do that. And I think that that's what I appreciated about this, especially, is her not wanting to just stand on the sidelines. And I remember reading I'm with the band, the Pam DeBar book, and being
Mm-hmm.
like in my probably my mid-20s reading that and being kind of turned off about it, because I'm like, big deal, you slept with a bunch of guys, cool. I mean, she did have the GTOs eventually, but
Yeah.
I liked this Daisy story in the sense that this woman is owning her she's doing it. And isn't that cool? And I love the fact that so many more young women, even like a generation younger than us, really are willing have done that,
Mhm.
and I just never even thought about it. Like, why didn't I learn three chords and play, in a punk band? So I
Yeah.
think
And we did
that's
have some female musicians, locally that we would see, but I don't know. I guess I never really had the courage to do it. I think that was part of it probably for me was a
yeah,
courage issue, but
I think they
but
were
and that is
usually and they were usually just lead singers, like not
mhm.
um yeah, I mean, I don't know why, because I don't know. Anyway, I think that that's part of it.
Yeah,
um and I just really, I mean, it just ticks off a lot of boxes of that whole idea of, I feel like it represents that time period really well and not in a cliche way. So,
absolutely.
and so
Yeah.
those are, and I just really related to, I just really liked all the female characters in the book, and we're going to go deeper into that, but that's what I really got, what got it to me
She
about the
wrote some
book.
really strong female characters. And I
Hmm.
don't think any of them, if you look at any of them individually, none of them wanted to stand off to the side.
No,
It was
no,
never their intent to stand off to the side and just be support for the guys. There
right.
was an involvement and a desire to have a seat at the table that we haven't maybe seen in some past representations. So
Yeah, I mean, even going to like Almost Famous, which is, you and me, one of our favorite movies. I would say that's a top movie for me. As much as I love Penny Lane and I love her character and the idea of the Band-Aid and stuff, you know, I like the strength of these women even more.
mhm, yeah,
I
I think
mean, no
they're
no shade on Almost Famous, but
no. Well, and I think for us because we were groupie adjacent, while we could look at some of those characters like a Penny Lane and like the character, I think for us we probably relate more, and maybe it's age and and development and stuff like that. But I can see myself more in these women than I could ever see myself in Penny Lane. And maybe
yeah.
it's because, of the age I was when that movie came out and where I was in life. And I don't know. But yeah, the female characters in this book, that Taylor Jenkins Reid put out is she's written some really strong female characters. And so I'm looking forward to us spending some time diving into them as we go through this conversation over the next several weeks.
Well, I also wanted to ask you a little bit about, because you have a whole community that I'm not a part of with the book, your book community.
Mhm.
And you told you and talk to me just a little bit about like the hype surrounding that book and the book because of that book community, and a little bit about um you know you know what, how that all came about for you.
So for me, you're absolutely right. I find myself very much embedded in the book community. And that is really where I found this book and started hearing about this book. And it's funny because I went back to a couple of groups that I'm involved in and I posted out to them. I said, "Where did you hear about this book?" And got a lot of responses, of in Facebook book groups, Book of the Month Club, which is a subscription box. I guess it sent out 1 month then. So a lot of it was, Facebook groups, a few TikTok, um, references, but a lot of Facebook book communities, which I get because the Facebook community for books is huge and has been probably for the last, I don't know, 10 years or so. I know that's kind of how long I've been involved in it. And you have book bloggers who run groups, you have authors that run their own groups. And within this, we're hearing about all these different books. And that's really where I found this book. Um, you know, I identified myself in with more of the romance community. I read some YA, erotica, and things like that. And although this book I would not put that in any of those genres. It still is like that community is kind of the one who started hyping it up, and started talking about it. But maybe that's because that's where I'm connected in and that's where I'm plugged in. So that's where I was hearing about it. I know one of the producers is Reese Witherspoon. So a lot of people will go back and say, I heard about it through Reese Witherspoon's social media. She picked it as, I guess, her book of the month club. I don't know. I don't really engage in that. But I guess she hyped it up as her book of the month, kind of like the Oprah book of the month. And so, of course, it gained a lot of traction that way as well, within the book community. So that's some of, where we kind of grew the momentum of it and started hearing more and more about it. But, again, the book itself has been out for a few years. I didn't jump onto it. It's kind of like those, you have a TBR list and it just continues to grow and grow and grow. And so it's been on my TBR list forever. But I finally just something about it. I just decided I was going to dive in and go ahead and give it a whirl, but it's continuing to get a lot of mentions in these book communities across Facebook on what we refer to as book talk. People are talking it up and continuing to drive it. It's still, you and I both I looked this afternoon, and it is number one on iTunes audiobooks across all genres. It's on fiction. So it's number one iTunes audiobook fiction. It's number 4 iTunes audiobook across all genres. Same with Audible. It's number 4 across all genres. It's number 2 on Amazon book sales. It is number 8 right now on the New York Times bestsellers. So, it just continues to get more and more momentum behind it. And I think the show is going to drive it even more, because I think there's a lot of people who are watching it after hearing about it, but maybe not necessarily have given the book a listen to or a read yet.
Right.
Well,
and I think we kind of dived a little bit, I feel like this is I think this is a book that's just straight up fiction. It doesn't really fit into it's not even, I guess it's genre. I don't even know if it's genre fiction. I think it's because it's not, it's not romance, and I think, and that's kind of nice, because I do feel like a lot of things that women like, and there's a lot of kind of poo-pooing some of the books that have gotten really popular, like, the Colleen Hoovers and the, 50 Shades of Grey stuff, which I haven't read any of that, but, I'm more of a person that when some people start talking bad stuff about what women like, it really gets to me. And I feel like it's a thing that happens for women basically from the beginning, when we're, teenagers. Whatever band we like, we're told that's cheesy. Whatever thing we like, it's not quite good enough.
Right.
That's and so for me, that also makes me kind of like, well, maybe I need to read these things because everybody's being trashing them, but I think that it is going to be, I just saw that the Aurora album, it's the first album of like music made specifically for a movie. It's the number 1 on iTunes.
Yeah.
So
I looked on, I'm a Spotify gal. So I looked on this afternoon, and the monthly listeners for Daisy Jones and the Six is over 1 million. And the plays for Regret Me is currently at 34 million, 3.4 million. So it's getting play. So yeah.
Well, I think let's just dive into and talk about the casting first.
Okay.
Let's
talk about some casting.
Let's go. Let's just get into let's get into this. So yeah, let's go with Riley. And how do you say your last name? Keough?
Keough. Yeah. Did you ever watch The Girlfriend Experience?
No.
Okay. I cannot remember what year it came out. And I want to say it was on Stars originally. She was in the very first season of it. And I will tell you, I did not watch subsequent seasons of it, but the very first season of The Girlfriend Experience, she was in it, and she was phenomenal. Huge fan. Thought she did a really good job. So that's, where I knew her from, not even connecting her to her family. I just saw her in that movie or in that series, and really was impressed by her. And then just kind of looking back over her, her history, her filmography. I mean, she's done, some TV movies. She's done a few TV shows, not a whole lot of stuff that I know,
Yeah.
other than like the Girlfriend Experience. She did a Mad Max movie.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what she was in that. I should have
Yeah,
looked
it
that
says
up.
she played Capable.
Yeah.
Looks like she was in Magic Mike. I need to go back and check that out because
Yeah.
I probably would
I
notice her character.
yeah, I would too.
And she was in the movie The Runaways.
Which I have seen that.
Yes. And so I've
Oh,
been a
did she
bit.
play Lita?
No, she played Marie Curry. I need to go back and watch. I haven't seen that
Oh,
one in a long
okay.
time.
She wasn't a main character.
Yeah, she was just kind of a peripheral. But I mean, I think she's super talented. I mean, what I've seen her in, I think she's super talented.
What did you, when you were picturing Daisy, or when you were listening to the audiobook, did you picture somebody?
So it was hard because, the voice actress in the audiobook is Jennifer Beals. So we can automatically recognize her voice. I recognized her voice as well as, you can picture her face. But even in listening to the audiobook, I never pictured Jennifer Beal
No, me neither.
visually as a character. The original cover of the book, with that red hair and those bangs, that was my visual, and that's kind of what I worked off of. And I think Riley fits. She has made herself into Daisy flawlessly. I think she's really encapsulated it.
When think when I listened to the audiobook, which was, the end of 2022, and I also watched this really great show on Peacock called Everything I Know About Love. And it's based on the memoir of a English writer named Dolly Alderton, and the character's name was Daisy, and she's tall with bangs, and even though it's set in the 2010s late, her clothing is very 70s, and so like my picture was that actress. Like I could not, like, because it would just fell into my head. And I mean, it's a great show about being in your 20s. It's really good. Makes me so glad as a 50-year-old that I'm not in my 20s now. But it that's who I kept picturing. And but whenever I saw Riley, I was like, this is good. This works. So
this works.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think they, and even now seeing her in the first 3 episodes,
yeah,
even more so,
yeah,
she is Daisy.
yeah.
So yeah,
I mean,
I think they did a good job with that one.
I mean, I think it's really hard. It's a hard thing to do. I mean, we know that they've made some changes in, the timeline a little bit, because how are you supposed to have an actor in their 20s and then somebody in their late 50s, if in the time span of the book of when the interviews take place. So I get that. So let's talk about Billy.
So Sam Claflin.
Yes.
I'm a fan. I like him a lot. I've seen several things of his. I've seen him in Hunger Games. I have not seen Peaky Blinders, but I have a 19-year-old son who is obsessed with Peaky Blinders, and has been trying to get me to watch it. So maybe now I'll have to watch it. Of course, he's in it, Enola Holmes, which is, has my boyfriend Henry Cavill in it.
Right.
And then the other one that he did was Me Before You.
Yeah.
What was the book? That one, Me Before You. Yes. Is that what it? Yeah. Me Before You. And that was a really good movie. Again, another book adaptation that was beloved by a fandom. I never read the book. Still haven't read the book. But the movie was really, really good. I made the mistake of watching it on an airplane. Thank God it was a night flight, so all of the cabin lights were off, because there were snot bubbles happening when I watched that. But yeah, did I see him as Billy? No, because he's usually pretty clean cut.
Yeah.
So I had a hard time envisioning. I had a hard time envisioning the men,
Me too.
like what they were going to look like. Like I could see Daisy, and maybe it's because they did such. Um, Taylor did such a huge. She committed a lot of. I felt like she committed a lot of energy into describing
Yes.
what Daisy looked like. Um, that I
I
could see her, but I don't feel like she gave me a strong description physically of what the male characters look like. So I didn't
yeah.
know what to expect.
I think after watching the first 3 episodes, I think that he's a good singer. I think he does look a little old. I think
Yeah.
he looks more himself when he's in the interview parts and
Right.
more believable to me than like like there's just some scenes that when we can talk about later where I feel like, oh man, you look old. And I mean he's only 36, but he's a 36. Like, like I mean I'm
He's
like,
looking all
I
36.
was like, do you smoke? I mean, because dang, but
Yeah.
I think,
Well,
I
and then there
mean,
was a guy that played like the younger version of Billy.
yeah.
And I'm like, why did they just keep him?
I mean,
But,
yeah. And
but of course, I don't know.
I
I don't
thought
know
he
who
was
that
very
was.
good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a very difficult thing to cast because you've got to get somebody who is believable as a rock star,
Mm-hmm.
and
Which involves not only just playing the instrument, but they have to have that charisma,
yeah, yeah.
that ego that a rock star would have. You can't
So
get somebody that's just going to be kind of wishy-washy. But yeah,
let's,
I think, I'm looking forward to seeing how he develops in the character,
yeah, yeah.
and we'll see how that goes.
So then we've got Camila, and I love that her name is Camila.
Do you know that Al Pacino's her stepdad?
No. Oh,
Yeah.
another Nepo baby, huh?
Yeah. Her mom is a former model.
Yeah.
Um,
You know,
Mom's Argentinian.
you know
And
what she
yeah,
looks
she
like to
was,
me? She looks
I
a
don't,
lot like Liv Tyler to me.
she
From
does have kind of a Liv Tyler look with like more olive, Liv
yeah,
Tyler's kind of pasty white like us. But with that olive complexion, she throws a little bit of that look. I get it. I
I
see it.
really feel Liv Tyler and That Thing You Do energy from her in this.
Yeah.
Like I really do. And then I mean, I don't know if we need to go I like because I really honestly just like you, I didn't have good pictures of what the men looked like in my head. So like Graham, I'm like, yeah, he's cute. Will Harrison, he's cute. Like I don't I
And
he
so I looked back through like their credits, and I mean, I'm gonna tell you, I
some
don't
of
know their past work.
Yeah, some of them are really new ones. And I think that that's cool because then we're not layering what we know about them onto
Mm-hmm.
this. I which because it is hard, like no matter what, because Tim Oliphant's at that point now where he's always just going to be Tim Oliphant, like like
His
so,
hair in this is just so. I mean, his whole look
dude,
is
that
just
I'm sorry, but I just don't understand what is wrong with the wigs these days on TV shows because his wig is terrible. And what kills me is I will watch Saturday Night Live can do a wig in a week that these shows can't do. And they've got, somebody who's got to put that on in 2 seconds. And the wigs that Tim Oliphant's
so.
wig it is a crime. It is
But he did rock the shorty terry cloth robe poolside
Oh, I loved
that
that.
was so very 70s,
Yes.
so very 70s.
Yeah.
So he pulled that, but yeah, the hair is bad. It's bad.
It
You know,
really, they
and I'm
did a
thinking,
bad
dude, you could have
job.
just grown your hair out, couldn't you? I mean, you had plenty of time.
Oh, because I
Because
bet
the
he's,
timeline for this is really, really long because they had like a year and a half of kind of shutdown. They had started working and then they had a year and a half of shutting down during the pandemic and then came back together. I'm like, dude, you were in lockdown. Grow your hair
well,
out, man.
he's got to go be Raylan again and others. So I would say Karen is very different from the or
Yes.
Karen. I mean, first of all, I don't even think they're calling her Karen in the show, but especially because I love the actress that plays her in the
Judy Greer.
Judy Greer.
Love
Because if you
her.
don't know Judy Greer, and if you watched Arrested Development,
How can you not know who Judy Greer is?
she's the one who's like, you'll never see these again, Michael.
I mean, she's just, how could you not know who Judy Greer
I
is?
don't know.
What rock are you living
I,
under that you don't know who she is?
I mean, she's such a great dramatic actress and comedic actress. So,
She's so hilarious. And she's just done so, I mean, you start flipping back through her
oh,
and you're just like, all the things that she's done, you're like, oh yeah, she's done that. Oh yeah, she's done that. And you're just like, I don't know. I'm a
I
huge
love her.
fan.
Well, so I'm
But yes,
kind of glad.
I was not expecting the British actress.
But I'm
Not
kind of
that
glad because then because Judy's read on some because Karen in the book has some of the best lines that I think it makes it good that she's not. I think it's a good choice because I would have just wanted this actress to read the way Judy did. So I
yeah.
think um and then I thought Simone looked pretty much what I thought Simone would look like.
Mm-hmm.
And she hasn't done very much at all, and I'm really excited
No,
for
I think she
her.
was in Black. She had a
Small
kind of a
part.
small role in Black Panther.
Yeah,
So
so
makes me want to go back and watch it again so I can find her in there. But yeah,
and then the guy who played Teddy Price, which that's also very different because the Teddy Price in the book is much more of a whoever the manager of Led Zeppelin was.
yeah,
He kind of had like that's kind of the energy that I got from what
right.
this
Well, there is
and
a stereotypical band manager that we always think about in
yeah,
situations. And
yeah.
yeah, he didn't fit that.
And
But Tom Wright, I loved it. He did a great job. And
well,
everybody you know Tom Wright's face. You like, where
yes,
do I know him from?
yes.
He's a great character actor. He's done so many things. Um, and if you
But
go
with
back
his
and
hair, he looked so different. I feel like because once I saw a headshot of him without his fro, I was like, oh, that guy.
that guy, he looks a lot older with the fro.
Yes.
I don't know what that is, but he does. I think he looks a lot older with the fro. But I still think he's somebody that if you when you see him without the fro, you'll recognize him who he is. When he's done, I can't even count.
Yeah.
The thing that I immediately was like, oh, he did Seinfeld.
Yes. Of
He did
course.
4 episodes. He did 4 episodes of
Of
Seinfeld. Of
course you
course,
did.
everybody's been on Seinfeld,
It's like now everybody's been on Law and Order.
right?
So we wanted to kind of one of the things after is there anybody else in the casting? I thought like Warren, great. I mean, that's just such a fun character. I do
Yeah.
appreciate that they kind of decided they went as diverse as they could be, I think,
Mm-hmm.
with
Yeah.
it. Um and I mean Eddie, I'm interested to see. I think that actor, I really like his energy, especially in the parts where he's in the interview where he's aged up. I think
Mm-hmm.
he's got a really good and I think he's going to have probably, I mean, I believe his storyline is going to be very different than what it is in the book. That's one of my
Yeah.
predictions.
And we know that there's some characters, and we're going to talk about this later on. There are characters that were a part of the book that are not a part of the TV show.
Yeah.
And that's typical.
Yeah.
We see characters combined or completely eliminated because there's just too much going on
Yeah.
to be able to accommodate all of them. So,
And I think that's something you and I talked about is we are both trying our best to go into the show with fresh eyes as a different piece of work. As much as
you texted that to me on Friday last week, and I was like, okay. And I had kind of this moment with myself, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen to Crystal on this because I did need to separate. Okay, because we are going to talk about the book, we are going to talk about the audiobook eventually, but I'm going to separate, and I'm looking at this as a television show first, and so I'm going to have to let go of some of those things
yeah.
and
I mean, it's hard. I mean,
enjoy it for what it is.
If you were a person who read the Harry Potter books and before you watched the movies, like the movies never quite get there. I would say for me, the only time really that the movie has actually been better than the book for me was The Fellowship of the Ring, because as a person who's read those books many, many times, I would always skip the Tom Bombadil part that they took out because I'm like, this is tedious. So like, I feel like The Fellowship of the Ring is one of the few times I ever was like, there's been lots of them where I'm like, they did a good job. They did a good job of adapting that, but the book is still better.
Right.
But I feel like this really, so knowing that going in, I'm just trying to soak it all in as a lover of that time period.
That genre. That
And
music.
yes.
That vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to go into it with that mindset. I'm taking away the book and I'm just going into it because I am a huge fan of that era of music, that vibe, that look, all of that. So yeah. So coming into it like that, I think helps.
Yeah, because already we can talk about it now. We know that they're not using the lyrics from the book in the songs.
Correct.
And
I'm really struggling with that.
Yeah.
I'm listening to the soundtrack more and more. But I'm really struggling with the attitude. And I told you, I found a couple of articles on this where they said very early on, we knew that we were going to have to let the lyrics go. And even Taylor has said, you do what you need to do to make this work. But the lyrics are such an important part of the book that that was one that I'm having a hard time. And we talked about this. I'm a lyrics person. You're a music riff person, and I'm the lyric person. And I'm struggling with the fact that the lyrics are not the same because it has completely changed the tone of a couple of the songs that are pinnacles of the book. It's completely changed the vibe of it. So that's one that I'm struggling with. And I would still, you told me, and I haven't gone out there and looked, there's some people on YouTube that have done the actual lyrics.
Yeah.
Original lyrics, which if you buy the paperback, in the back of the paperback, you will find all of the lyrics that are part of the book.
Yeah. And they're part of the ebook, the Kindle. So because I had that.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I'm listening to the soundtrack more and more, so that I can get past that. And I continue to listen to it, and I'm liking the music a lot. So I'm trying to push through the pain.
I mean, I do kind of feel like, considering, like, I listen to a lot of things that about songwriters, and songwriters are given, like, we need this, like, for Broadway musicals, they're giving, this is the storyline we need to push through, so write some lyrics to go with this. So it doesn't make, I mean, but I don't know anything about composing, so but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that they wouldn't have been able to at least put more of those lyrics in.
Well, and that's one of the articles that I found where they were talking about, we had to decide very early on to let the lyrics go. One of the lines in there was talking about how, we hired these professional songwriters. So we just kind of let them do their thing. But I'm like, if they're professional songwriters, then they should be able to come into it with lyrics presented to them and knowing this is the vibe and this is what's going on in the story at the time that this song is part of it. We need you to write a melody to go around that. But again, I don't know anything about composing.
Or just even say, okay, we're going to be able to, we can't use all of this for this to get the rhythm we need, but we can do this. I just feel like the thing, it makes me not feel great that from the very beginning they said we're going to have to let the lyrics go. And we had professional songwriters. Well, Taylor Jenkins Reid is a professional writer. Like, what?
And she wrote some good lyrics.
That's what I'm saying. And
because you can be a novelist and not be able to write lyrics.
Yes.
She wrote a novel, has written multiple novels, and she wrote great lyrics. And just one of the songs in particular, and I don't want to spoil anything, but one of the songs in particular plays such a crucial role in the story toward the end.
Yes.
I don't know how I'm going to get past that, but I'm going to work on it. I've got time. I'm going to try.
I think that and this is me just being like super, I've become a paranoid woman, but I just feel like I just wonder if they would have said that if it had been a male writer who'd written male lyrics.
I don't think that's paranoia. I think that's the reality in which we have lived in and grown up in.
And also nothing. So anyway, that, but moving on from there, we can talk about, so, the showrunner, he is Scott Neustadter
So tell
Stadler.
us what a showrunner is, because this is something I was like, and you having industry experience and having worked in the industry for a very long time, I need you to explain to me what a showrunner is.
Well, my experience working at local TV doesn't have anything to do with showrunners, but your nerdy bookness is my nerdy TV stuff. So the showrunner is basically like the movie director. Like in a film, the showrunner, the in a film, the director, often he's leading the whole thing. Yeah, the showrunner is even more of that because he is leading the writing and the vision of the show. So
Okay.
like, Mindy Kaling is the showrunner of the Mindy Project. So she's in there writing it.
I was going to
Um,
say, so she's in the writer's room and then
yes,
she's out.
and she's
Okay.
probably on set too. Or Craig Mazin is the showrunner of The Last of Us, and he was the showrunner of Chernobyl. So he didn't write the original, he didn't write, The Last of Us, but he's adapting that book for television, so he's
Mhm.
driving it. And then each show will have a director, and that director will come in and they will have their own vision of how to direct this part of the story. But the showrunner is the person who will ultimately say, um, still has kind of a final say in a lot of that stuff. They're working closely. Being a showrunner in television is insane, especially like if you think of Quinta Brunson doing 22 episodes, or anybody who does like the Law and Order shows, like the Dick Wolfs, those show,
Mhm.
or Shonda, when she was Shonda Rhimes doing 22 episodes of Grey's Anatomy, hour-long shows. They're insane. They are a different kind of person than I could ever
Yeah.
be, because I don't ever want to work that hard. Not even for something as cool as this.
Yeah.
So he is the showrunner. So he's the person who's basically, each show will have a writing credit. And in dramas, it's a little different. Usually in dramas, the writing credit, that person really has written all of it. And in a comedy, there's a writer's room and there's a person who is named the writer, but it's a much more collaborative thing. They'll probably write out all the beats and then they'll come back into the room and then they'll punch it up. Whereas
Mhm.
and that really, how the writer's room is run, that's completely up to the showrunner. The showrunner is the end all be all. They're like the CEO, they're everything on a show.
Okay.
So that's why a lot of them have meltdowns. And and the culture of a show is determined by that showrunner.
Right.
So
Well, that
but
would
so
make sense.
but he has a really interesting, his background. Like he wrote 500 Days of Summer. Like he has I feel like his writing credits are very in line with what this show is trying to do. So it makes sense that he would do it, that he is directing it or he's running the show. Would I have liked it maybe to be a woman? Yes, because that's just who I am in this point in my life. But um he has, his credits are, oh, Rosaline, which I keep meaning to watch. It's on my list.
Oh,
It's about the other, it's the Romeo and Juliet tale told.
yeah.
So, he's written a lot of screenplays. He's probably done a lot of fixing of screenplays too. He has this many screenplay credits that he
Hmm.
probably didn't get credit for. He's probably taken passes at lots of screenplays.
Yeah.
The Fault in Our Stars, which I do like that movie.
Oh my gosh.
That's pretty rough.
I
Um,
love that movie though.
and he
I love Ansel.
Yeah, and then so I think I also meant to read. Let's see, he has a lot of movies that I do need to see. So he, I'm interested to see how, especially because the first some episodes were directed by men, and I'm interested to see if I can, like, the history and how things go as the next episodes are directed. A lot of them are by women, and
Mhm.
when we go through the each episode I'll do a little bit more research on the past of what other credits the directors and writers have.
Right. Okay.
So, but what are you really looking forward to from this? What are you hoping for?
So what am I hoping for? I really in the audiobook loved Camilla's character. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they flesh her out on screen. Because I do think that she was a really important character, and her voice, I think, I don't know, her voice and what she had to say in the book were so integral to the storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious to see if they develop the character out in a similar way.
Yeah.
Because some of the things that they've done so far, I've been like a little,
Yeah.
So I am anxiously awaiting to see how they flesh her out. And then I'm looking forward to the ultimate tension that we see between Billy and Daisy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also looking for that. I want to see how they depict that, the bottom for Daisy, where she
Yeah.
is really in the depths of her addiction. And because I think we could read that and listen to that and visualize having grown up in that era, having seen it portrayed out in television and in movies before, we could visualize what that looked like.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm anxious to see, I'm excited to see how they bring her addiction to life on screen. That may sound weird, but
No, I'm just
because I
really
do think it's
looking.
an important part of who she is, and it's an important part of her character development and where she goes to being able to sit in that chair for those interviews. She would not, I don't think she would be at that point had she not gone through emotionally everything that she'd gone through leading up to that. So
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the spectacle. I feel like we just in the first 3 episodes we just start getting there. The
episode
spectacle,
3.
yeah, the spectacle of a rock band.
Mm-hmm.
That is because I feel like thinking just back now, even after just talking about this, we didn't relate to Penny Lane. We relate to Russell, we relate to the kid
Mm-hmm.
and Almost Famous. We're
Right.
we're that kid. We love that music. We love those guys. That's who we relate to. And I think that the spectacle of that, and I like anything about songwriting because I don't know how you do that. Like I personally
Yeah.
like, the little, what's her name who wrote the driver's license or whatever that
Oh
song.
yeah, Olivia
Like
Rodrigo.
listening to
Yeah,
her talk about writing that song, I'm like, you're just a miracle. Like to me, that is just so.
I've always been in awe of
Yes.
lyricists.
Or like,
It's just,
or Burt Bacharach,
oh,
just that. So and I feel like it's almost like people who are able to speak multiple languages very easily, polyglots. Like I feel like
mm-hmm.
people who can write music, like they have especially like the songwriter person, like there's something about them that's really special. So I'm really looking forward to seeing, like I like lots of dramatic scenes in studios. That's a fun thing for me in recording studios.
Yes.
So
Which episode 3 is going to deliver that. And I can't wait for us to
yeah,
talk about that one because
yeah,
episode 3 delivers that one.
yeah.
But yeah,
So
no, there is something, there is a sense of envy that I have always had for people that can write lyrics, and I've always had for musicians, because it's not a skill that I was ever able to pick up, probably because I didn't commit the time to it. But lyricist, I think that's even something. I think anybody can pick up a guitar and start playing it, but there's something about a songwriter that not just everybody can do.
Right.
So,
well, we've been
of
talking
course,
for
I say that I can't play guitar, but anyway.
yeah, well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We're kind of getting close. We've been talking for a while now. And so I wanted to just kind of go over here's how the podcast will work if you're still listening. Next week we are going to go through episodes 1 and 2.
Mhm.
And then after the week after that, we'll do episode 3. We're not going to try and do it in the order of the way Amazon is releasing it because it's crazy how they're releasing it. I think they're kind of doing it in a way like the way Andor did, if you watched Andor. TV nerd here, because they kind of did it by storyline, and I have a feeling that's what Amazon is doing. So, but we're going to just do it where we can feel like we can do the best deep dive on these episodes and really hash it out.
Right.
So, and then probably after the series is over, we'll do a whole one just kind of about the book, and maybe even a second one really discussing deep dive into the music and the bands that the artists who contributed, and really kind of dissecting those even deeper than we do when we talk about each episode. So that's kind of the plan.
I
But
like the plan.
we decided to close out on
Oh,
something
I'm so excited about
fun.
this.
So this is something that I think we've talked about a lot anyway, is the whole fake bands and fake music thing in pop culture. And and with this coming out, there's been a whole bunch of lists. Rolling Stone just did one. One of my favorite writers, Alan Sepinwall, did one. And actually, there's another podcast that I love. If you like a long ass podcast, Screen Drafts is where they draft movies, kind of like the way you do fantasy football. It's very convoluted, and they talk for hours. I'm talking literal hours, but they do a really fun one about fake bands, and that kind of introduced me to some new movies that I hadn't seen. And so I highly recommend that. Just go to Screen Drafts and you can find it. But
Well, even
Dave,
looking at these lists, there were bands
yeah,
that they brought up, or they were movies that they brought up in these lists, and I was like, I haven't seen that. And then there were some movies that they brought up and considered them to have bands in it, and I was like, no, they aren't.
right. So, and I mean,
So.
I'm going to just say I probably broke all the rules of what a band is or what this is about, but I just wanted to throw out a list of things that I liked.
So yeah, because not all of mine are bands
Right.
encompassing multiple people.
Okay. Me too.
But yeah, so
and and we'll put
we picked our top 5.
Yes.
I did have a few honorable mentions that
Oh,
I
me
made on my
too.
list
I have a
too.
lot of honorable mentions.
Okay, so we're gonna go. You want to start with your number 5?
I'll start with my number 5.
Go.
So I picked from not the movie Nashville, but from the TV show Nashville. The song.
I didn't even think about TV.
Oh, you didn't? Well, because
I just did movies.
Because this is a TV show. So
this is true. I just did movies.
Okay, well that's good.
But
so
Nashville. Okay.
I picked from Nashville, "No One Will Ever Love You." It is. I think I watched the first 2 seasons of Nashville and then kind of fell off on it. That's from the first season. It's like maybe the second episode. The minute they played that song, I went to iTunes and bought it. And it is a beautiful song. It's written by the guy from the Civil Wars.
Okay.
It is beautiful. And in the TV show, it is a pivotal moment. And also that show is just an endorsement of Connie Britton's beautiful hair and beautiful jackets. And
so I didn't even think about including television shows. But I will tell you, Nashville is the place where I discovered the Civil Wars, and I can tell you the Civil Wars are top 5 band for me.
Really?
I still listen to them consistently, and still devastated that
how did
they
we
broke
never
up.
talk about that?
How did we never talk about that? But that is where I discovered the Civil Wars and obsessed with the Civil Wars. I love them.
Well, No
Yes.
One Will Ever Love You has a line in it that says, "Why don't you get off?" It's because it's a duet. It's her and Deacon, and they used to be
So is it
together.
Connie Britton and Deacon?
So
Okay.
Raina and Deacon, and
Britton and Deacon.
they used to be together and sing, and now and so and there and he sings, she sings something, and he says, "Why don't you get off your high heels?" And I think that's so, because you think he's going to say high horse, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just so, and the way he sings it. And what's so funny is the guy who plays Deacon, um, is
Charles
also,
Estes.
you will recognize him from
Mm-hmm.
from what is
He's in
it?
so many things.
But he's from the improv show.
Yes.
Um,
Whose line is it anyway?
whose line is it anyway? I saw him live, okay, and to see him play this guy who's so morose and then be that funny guy on Whose Line Is It Anyway is so great. But yes, that's my top. That's my number 5.
Okay. So my number 5, you're gonna laugh. Um, my number 5 is the 1986 Australian classic
I knew this.
about a punk band in Melbourne, Australia. And nobody knows about this movie except for you and a few small friends. And that is a movie called Dogs in Space.
Yes.
I became obsessed with this movie in high school. I think myself and my little group of nerdy music friends were the only people that ever rented that movie from the Sound Warehouse on Hewlin.
Yes.
I wore my cassette out. I still continue to scour the internet today to try to find a digital version of the soundtrack. I have a VHS copy of the movie. Don't have a VCR anymore, but I have a VHS copy of the movie. And I don't even, if you're still listening to this podcast, go out to the web, go out to the YouTubes and go search it up, because it's a great, I love the movie. I love the movie. So that's my number 5, Dogs in Space.
Is there a particular song?
Um, so there's a song, and you can actually find the video out on YouTube. It's called Rooms for a Memory.
Okay.
And it's a song that they play toward the end of the video, or at the end of the movie. But there's just a lot of great like punk music. Like there's Iggy Pop music in there. There's Brian Eno has a song in there. Yeah, so I mean, the music is just, I'm trying to look for the tracks to see if I can find. But there's a lot of like the Shivers are in there. There's a lot of like punk bands that, if you are familiar with punk, like real punk, 80s punk, then you'll know who these bands are.
Well, was Dogs in Space a band?
Dogs in Space was a band.
And so, okay, so then
And
they had their own songs.
Yes.
Because if not, I'm going to have to kick that out.
No, they had their own songs.
Okay.
They played, I mean, that was the whole story, was this band lived in this house with some random other people. But yeah, so they were truly a band in the video. In the movie.
I have watched this movie, but it was always
one of those. We made you watch it.
It was one of the, it's like a slumber party kind of thing where I'm like, and then I don't have a lot of memory of it. I remember it seeming very dirty and brown. That's my memories of it.
Super disgusting, dirty people lived in this filthy ass house. I don't think Michael Hutchins ever bathed during the movie. Like, almost to the point of like dreadlocks. His hair was so matted and filthy.
Yeah, yes, that's what I remember, because I kind of remember when I think of that movie and I think of the British show The Young Ones, the like kind of the same visceral smell coming through the television.
Yes. Okay, but it's Michael Hutchins, and I love him, and I miss him, and the music was great.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are number 5s.
Okay,
number 4.
You do your number 4 first.
Number 4 for me is That Thing You Do.
Yeah.
The Tom Hanks classic. And really, there's only like 2 songs in the whole movie, but I love all the cast, the Oneaters, the Wonders, Liv Tyler. I just think Tom Hanks in there. I just think it's a great movie.
That was my number 1.
That's your number
Actually,
one?
the song "That Thing You Do" is my number one. I I I mean, Adam Schlesinger, the guy who wrote it, was, rest in peace. He was an incredibly talented person, and yes, I actually think that's one of like a perfect movie. I think it's
I think it's a great movie.
everything about it is perfect. I love just there's it's just so good. Tom, it has all of the things that you want. There's no more better scene of pure joy than when they hear the song on the radio and they're running.
They're running
And
down the street
yeah,
with her little transistor radio and the little
yes,
single little earbud in. Yeah. No.
yeah,
And and just visually the movie is great because it's
yes,
just, even though, the time period was kind of a dark period in the country's history, the just the visual of it was always so bright,
hmm,
and great costumes, and great sets that were just truly authentic to the time period.
yeah.
So yeah.
And just Tom Hanks' characters like, oh, you guys look great in red. You guys look great in blue. And just, yeah, everything
Here, now
about
your
that.
shades.
Yeah, your shades. Okay, what's
Okay,
your
so that
number
was my
four?
number four.
Hmm.
So that was my number four. What's your number
Oh,
four?
my number four is Dewey Cox, Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. And I know it's a parody, but
Don't care.
I
It's
love that
great.
movie. And I would say I'm picking of that, the song I love the most is Let's Duet. And but I would say me and my husband have listened to the soundtrack to that so many times. I love the fake Roy Orbison one. It is so funny. And I can't recommend that movie enough. I think it's just one of the
Love that.
funniest movies I've ever seen.
It's a good
And I
movie.
saw it in the movie theater. I guess I'm one of the five people. Me and my husband are one of the two of the five people who did because it was a big bomb. But I thought it was just perfect. And Let's Do It, I think is it just does so many funny things to it. And so yeah.
And he was such the perfect, he just nailed it.
Well, and if you go on YouTube, you can see him. They toured as Dewey Cox and him playing guitar. And it's so he put so much into it, and all of the songs on there are
I
there's
wonder if
like
he played beforehand.
I think he did.
Yeah.
He put like the fake Bob Dylan one is so funny, and just the whole movie and the whole you don't want none of this, do we? And just the whole, and I feel like it kind of has ruined biopics about musicians for me because I always think about that movie and like so
So
it's
I'm trying to remember. So if you've watched Walk the Line, then you know that
yes,
Johnny Cash had a brother who was killed
yes.
in a farming accident. How was Dewey's I can't,
He halved him. He
it was
halved
something
him.
crazy.
He sawed him in half on accident because he was swinging around a scythe or something like that.
And I knew it was some kind of whack
Or
out
scythe.
way that he killed his
I
brother.
mean, I've been halved, Dewey.
Half and halves. That's hilarious. Okay,
Yes,
so which number was that for us?
that was four.
That was four. Okay,
Yeah.
so you want my number three?
I'll do my number three
You
first.
did your
We'll
number
do it
three.
like it's a serpentine draft. I picked The Thing Called Love
Okay.
with River Phoenix and Samantha
Dang.
Mathis.
You know
And
I love that movie. I feel like my list sucks now because you and I love that movie.
I
We talk
picked
about that movie all the
I
time.
picked the Lone Star State of Mind, which this like the internet has been responsible for a lot of evil in the world, but I had looked for because that his River Phoenix versions of Lone Star State of Mind is not on the soundtrack.
Nope.
And I thank you internet for having that on YouTube now and I can listen to it anytime I want. And I love that
Damn it. I
um
can't believe I forgot that
and
one.
I love that movie
God, that
and
makes me mad.
I also love it because that movie is when, 'cause that was a really good time in country music.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like, we had Radney Foster, we had Pam Tillis,
What
and
was
we
a
had,
strong singer songwriter?
yes.
It was
And
it was a strong singer songwriter era.
Yes.
Even though that movie came out in 93.
Yeah.
When we were getting into, there was a shift happening in
Yes.
93. There was a shift. There was still, that one to me is like, it's the true Nashville experience of a go into the Bluebird Cafe
Yes.
and waiting in line. And, you saw the same thing in Nashville too. There was
Yes.
the Bluebird Cafe played a big part in that TV
Yes.
show, but you have these songwriters. Yeah, it was really, that movie was about the songwriters.
And also I feel like it
Oh,
was the
man, I can't believe
first
I freaking forgot that movie. God damn, that pisses me off.
and it's the first movie because I'm not from Texas, I moved here in junior high and really did not like it here until college, honestly. Like everybody has fond memories of high school, and even though we knew each other in high school, I would say we were a Venn diagram of we had similar
Yes,
friends, but we weren't like I didn't have your phone number.
perfect description of our friendship in high
Yeah.
school.
So I this movie was the thing where I started going, oh, these people are from Texas. Oh yeah, Willie Nelson is from Texas. Oh, Jerry Jeff Walker is from Texas. Oh, Waylon Jennings, and kind of really understanding that Texas is different from regular country music, and it kind of started, which really peaked in like mid like 2000 um 2005 2006 for me, of like me really loving Texas music particularly,
Yes.
and also embracing the fact that I live in Texas.
Yeah.
And that was a small window where now I don't know how I feel about that anymore. Where
Born and raised here. But
but
no, you're right, because I think you hit on there is a difference between Texas country and what was in Nashville at the time. But you could still see this connection between the two.
yes, but a lot
But
of those great songwriters that we associate with that time period are
yeah,
they're Texas writers. It's Radney
yeah.
Foster,
Tim
even
Ritchie.
yeah, even Garth Brooks. He's an Oklahoma boy, but
Yeah,
I mean, before Garth Brooks, became Garth Brooks, like that first album is a lot of really good songwriting from him. You know,
yeah.
so
Well, like Bruce Robinson, Charlie Robinson,
yeah,
Kelly Robinson, Kevin Welch.
yeah.
That, again, having grown up in Texas and not really being a fan of country music, those people in that realm of country music were always ones that I've enjoyed and still enjoy.
Well, and I would also just say, it's a great movie to see Sandra Bullock, little Sandy Bullock, as as the best friend, the sassy
The
best
pageant
friend,
girl.
and also Dermot Mulroney looking cute. And then you get to see a lot of cameos. You see KT Oslin, you see, I believe, Trisha
Mm-hmm.
Yearwood.
Yeah.
Um,
As
I
they
would
break into
say,
Trisha
oh,
Yearwood's car.
what's his name? Oh, I can't remember it right now, but there are just a lot of cameos
Damn, I'm gonna
from,
have to go back and watch that movie now.
yeah.
There's
And
a lot.
okay, so what's your
It's
number
so good.
three?
Okay. God damn, I'm still pissed that I missed that one. Okay, hold on. I gotta pull my list up here. Frick, my phone locked. Okay. My number three is, I don't know if this is one that you knew that I would put on my list, but my number three is, gosh, I can't remember when this came out. Hold on. I'm gonna Google it so that I can. My number three is the 1996 classic, Grace of My Heart.
I that was I no, I would not have thought you put that on there.
Grace of My Heart, which
Oh,
is it's Ileana Douglas.
yes,
It's Allison Anders.
yes,
She wrote it and directed it. Ileana Douglas is in it. Matt Dillon's in it. John Turturro is in it. Eric Stoltz is in it. And it's kind of loosely based on Carole King
yes,
as a songwriter, and kind of this transition of this songwriter behind the scenes and then the girl genre, and then coming into her own through lots of tragedy, but coming into her own as her own singer songwriter performer. But yeah, I love that
I
movie.
mean, God
And that
give me
soundtrack has so many. Kristen Vigard is one of the female singers on there. Sean Colvin has a song on there. Elvis Costello and Burt Bacharach have a
Yeah,
song on there.
that's the
So, there's so many great songs on, because Ileana Douglas did not sing her own stuff. It was
yeah.
this Kristen Vigard who did all of her songs. But yeah, oh, I love that
Yeah,
movie.
I mean, God Give Me Strength is just a perfect song. I mean,
Yes.
yeah,
And just knowing where it comes at the end of the movie and like
yes,
what she's gone through. And I mean, there's, it's loosely based on Carole King, but then again, you get into this whole Laurel Canyon,
yeah,
Malibu vibe, because she starts out in New York
yeah.
as this,
In the brill
ugly duckling
building,
songwriter. And then she transitions out to California where it's this whole, you get a Beach Boys vibe, you get, the whole Laurel Canyon, Malibu vibe going on with it.
right?
And so, yeah,
And I would
Grace of My
say
Heart
if you like that movie, there's a great book called Music in the Air. It's all about the Brill Building, and it like talks about all of those songwriters and all of the great music that came from that building and from those people, including Carole King. And I would say that also it's a great story about how this country would not have any culture if it wasn't for our people of color, our African American people, and our Jewish people, because they are pretty much every song that you love from the 50s and 60s is about
was written
those
by them.
people, was
Yeah.
by those people and performed by that group of
Yeah.
people. So anyway, that's my
Okay,
little
your number
rant for
three?
there. My
Yeah, no.
number um
Number
no,
three.
we're no, we're did I already did
Oh,
number
you
three.
did your number three.
So
So
you
it's
do
gonna
number
be
two. No, what's your number two?
number two is A Mighty Wind.
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
Anything and everything, Christopher Guest, Eugene
Yes.
Levy, Harry Shearer. I mean, you go back to Spinal Tap, which I do love Spinal Tap. Um, but A Mighty Wind, God, I just love the movie. I just love the movie. Jane Lynch is in it. Um, God, who was the guy that played Letterman when they did the HBO movie about um the
Oh, the
late night talk
late.
show wars? Hold on, Mighty Wind. I gotta Google this. 2003 was when the movie came out. Michael McKean, Harry Shearer, Parker Posey's in it. Catherine O'Hara, of course, is in it. But I just, it's a great it's another great mockumentary from Christopher Guest. I mean,
Well,
it
and
goes back and it's, if you haven't seen it, it's all of the 60s folk groups coming together for this tribute concert for somebody, I guess who was, I want to say a record label owner or some producer that had died. And so they were coming together to do this tribute concert. And so all of these different acts from days gone by, and they show old footage of them and then coming into current day interviews with them. And yeah, I love them.
well, I would say in the Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, their part is actually quite touching. Like
Yes,
it's like I kind of, it's really sweet.
that
And
song. I
their
just love
song
it.
is so sweet, and that's a really that's a great choice. I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so
You're number
my
two.
movie is from, I believe, I can't remember what year, but here's the thing. It is starring Diane Lane,
Oh, I know
Streets
what you
of Fire. And I would say my favorite song is by the fake like Temptations type band, the Sorrels. I Can Dream About You, but which is actually sung by Dan Hartman, a very blonde man. But yes, Streets of Fire is my number two, because I
Golly.
love I Can Dream About You.
That is a great song. And hold on. So who was the main? Hold
Michael
on.
Paré,
Oh, there you go.
yummy.
Oh, and Diane Lane was
See,
such a badass in that
and
movie.
well, and it's
I loved
interesting.
her.
Both of them are in movies, are in other awesome fake band movies, because he's in Eddie and the Cruisers, which has one of
Yes.
my favorite is another one of my favorite songs, fake songs, is On the Dark Side. And then she's in The Fabulous Stains, which is an amazing movie. She's just a little, so
I
young
haven't
in
seen
that.
that one.
You have to see that movie. But so good. And it's got her and Laura Dern, very young Laura Dern in it. And it's about some girls who have a punk band. And I mean, I just think that's so interesting that both of them were in these other
Other
great,
movies with fake
yeah.
bands.
But I mean, come on. I mean, the song tonight is what it means to be young. I mean, it's so overwrought. It's by the guy who, it's by Meatloaf's songwriter, the guy who wrote all of those songs.
Yeah,
Who just passed away recently. Really interesting guy. But yeah, Streets of Fire.
that's a good one. Okay, so we're at our number ones.
Yeah. So
You know
I
my
already
number
told
one.
you mine. I already told you mine. Mine
You
was
already told me that.
yeah, that thing you do is my number one. So what's yours?
So my number one is Almost Famous.
Okay, yeah.
That's my number one.
Yeah.
But damn, you threw out some good ones that I hadn't thought about. And so
I mean,
but yeah, and I mean, if you think looking at the soundtrack itself, like there's only one Stillwater song on the soundtrack.
yeah, Fever Dog. But it's
Yeah.
really good.
But it's a really good song.
I just rewatched that just when I was making my list because I was like, oh,
I
but
watch that movie at least 3 times a year. At
wow.
least. I love that movie.
Yeah.
I love Jason Lee. I love Billy Crudup.
Yes.
I love, and I don't just love I don't just love Penny Lane's character. Who is, I can't remember.
Fairuza Balk.
Fairuza Balk's character. I
Yeah.
love her. Well, and even Anna Quinlan, Anna Quinlan. Why is my mind
The
blowing
one
blank?
that won the Oscar.
For the piano.
Anna.
That's Anna
No.
Paquin.
Paquin.
Anna Paquin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love that movie. I just love
too.
that movie. And you think about the song. I mean, there's only one Stillwater band or Stillwater song in there. But the scene where they thought the plane was going to go down and they're like screaming at each other and talk and like just revealing all kinds of secrets, and then the plane survives, and and just Russell's character, and yeah.
It's not Russell. I don't know. I kept saying Russell. It's Cameron Crowe, not Russell Crowe, who I do like. Cameron Crowe's character.
No, it's Cameron Crowe. Cameron
his name is Russ. Is his name Russell in the?
Well, Russell is the Billy Crudup character.
Yes. Okay.
So, but yeah, I just yeah, that's probably, again, that's a movie that I've watched probably 2 or 3 times at least a year.
Wow.
I watch that one because I love it. And again, it's that whole era of music that I just really, really dig. So,
well, I'm going to throw out some of my my runner-ups. Sing Street is it came out in 2016. It's by the same guy who did Once.
Okay.
Love it. It's about a young kid who basically decides to start a band to meet a girl, and it's so the music is so good, and it's definitely now in my rotation. Like I just watched it last year. I found out about it because of the Screen Drafts podcast, and it is so good. I'm gonna just run through a few more.
Yeah, run through.
Nashville, the Robert Altman movie from the 70s.
Yes,
has some great performances and really taps into that 70s country music scene, and especially there's one called My Idaho Home by a woman who the character is very much like a Loretta Lynn, and it's actually a movie, like it could be kind of a parody of Coal Miner's Daughter, but it's not, because it's so sweet and her performance is so good. And then also
I haven't seen that movie in so long.
Karen Black is in it. I mean, all of the Lily Tomlin, all of the Robert Altman people are in it. Yeah, it's
his crew.
It's such a great movie. It's very meandering. It's very Robert Altman, but it has got some great music in it. I would say I'm putting the Barbara Streisand, A Star is Born, especially Watch Closely Now by Chris Christopherson. He
Mhm.
sings it. It's a Paul Williams song. Um, there are a lot of flaws to that movie. I mean, of course, it does have Evergreen, which is a gorgeous Barbara Streisand hit. Her clothes are just amazing in it, and there's actually, if you go on YouTube, you can see her costume fittings. They screen test for her costumes,
Mhm.
and it's such a great thing at the end of the movie. It says the credit is Miss Streisand's costumes from her closet. So just and
Did you like the Lady Gaga
yeah,
and Bradley
yeah,
Cooper one?
I enjoyed
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
I thought Shallow. I love that song.
Yeah.
I mean, I
I
think
was pleasantly surprised at how well he could sing.
I thought all of it was really well, and I really liked how they kind of addressed like the tinnitus, hearing problems and
Mhm.
some of those things. I mean, it's not as I mean, it's one of those things that I think like you have to remake that every 30 decades, or like every 30 years you should remake it, just
Yeah.
because I thought it was really good. I mean, that scene where he brings her up on stage, that's the spectacle that I love. I mean, and
Mhm.
there
Where
that
she's
scene,
like he's dragging her out there
I
on
mean, and
stage.
that is very much like a scene in the Barbara Streisand one. And he brings her up,
Mhm.
and she's wearing her body be banging in that, and she looks so great. And I mean, to me, that was what I wanted, you
Yeah.
know. So I mean, I knew going in, I had my tissues ready. All the people who'd never seen The Star Is Born, I'm like, what are y'all
Y'all are
thinking?
ready. Y'all are
But
ready for this. But
and
it's
then
so
my
good.
last one that I want to put out there is, if you haven't seen Phantom of the Paradise,
Have
um,
not.
it is a take on, it is a Brian De Palma movie. It is a take on Phantom of the Opera. It's a rock opera, and
Hmm.
it stars Paul Williams is a bad guy in it. And it has some really great music. And the great thing, as a person who is from Dallas, the the paradise, the castle that he lives in, is the Red Courthouse of the city of Dallas, Red Courthouse, and the
Okay.
Paradise movie theater. Like, that's the castle. The Paradise movie theater is the Majestic.
Okay,
And
cool.
I think about 6 years ago, they filmed it there, and I got to see. They filmed it there, and the star, the female star, I think Jessica Alter, I think her name is, she came and spoke, and so it was really cool to see Phantom of the Paradise in the Majestic. So it is a really overwrought, very 70s movie, but it's also, I mean, it's Paul Williams is writing the music, so it's
Right. It's gonna
one of
be.
those guys. So
Yeah.
those are
But
my
that's
those are
your
mine.
honorable mentions.
Yes.
Okay. So my honorable mentions are The Commitments.
Yes.
I love that movie.
Yep.
Um, you know, you don't expect that kind of voice to come out of a chubby white dude from England.
Yeah.
But it still does. It's a great soundtrack. And I
And
think that was one of those soundtracks that like you could listen to with your parents. For us, it was one that everybody would want to listen to. So I had The Commitments on there because I really love that movie.
And I didn't put that on there because they didn't write any original music, and so I was
True.
going with, so that was my, because that probably would be my number one, like overall,
Okay.
as far as like having a long lasting impression on me.
Mhm.
That's why I got obsessed with 60s soul music, and got obsessed with Stax. Then that led me to loving Otis Redding and like deep cuts of Otis Redding, and then that led
Mhm.
me, that's where so much of what I listen to now comes from. So
Comes
that
from.
that would have been my number one, but I didn't. I felt
But you
like,
went with
well,
originals. Okay.
yes, okay,
Okay. Um, Another honorable mention was For Once.
yes,
I love that soundtrack. I love that soundtrack. I love the story. Um, I think it's beautifully filmed. The the cinematography of that is completely perfect for that story.
hmm,
And some people might look at it and say, well, it looks like, it looks really downgraded, or it looks like somebody just shot it themselves. I think it's just perfect for the story. And then my last honorable mention is Dreamgirls, the
oh
musical with
yes,
Beyonce and Jennifer
yes,
Holliday. and the other girl, whose name I can't remember.
Jennifer Hudson.
I mean, not Jennifer Hudson, but doing Jennifer Holiday's part.
Yes.
But yeah. And I have this kind of love-hate relationship with Beyonce. Like, I don't know. I have like some moments I just really am but sometimes she just gets on my nerves. But that movie, I think, and I will tell you, Jamie Foxx in that movie is absolutely incredible.
Yes.
I don't think Jamie Foxx gets half the credit he deserves for his talent. Because and the soundtrack is equally as strong to the original Broadway soundtrack that most all of us have heard. But yeah, so Dreamgirls was another one on my list.
I think that's I forgot about that one because I love Jamie Foxx in that. And in fact, there's a really great thread by he was a Dallas Observer writer back when the 90s, and he's written for tons of other places. I think he writes for Siskel and Ebert's. He writes for RogerEbert.com now. Matt Zoller Seats.
Oh yeah.
And he has a really great Twitter thread about how good an actor Jamie Foxx is in and Terrell's Own. So Terrell, Texas. So
shout out.
Well, wow.
Okay, we did it.
Yeah, with a few little problems with recording, we still got through it.
How long do we yammer on for?
Looks like about an hour and a half, about an hour and 15.
Okay, that's not too bad.
Yeah, so we will
so we're gonna come back. We're gonna do another episode.
Yeah, it'll be
next one. We're gonna dive into one and two.
We're gonna
focus on those
and
talk about some character development.
Yeah,
kind of start laying some groundwork.
There's some songs that we can talk about.
Oh, I think I told you this, but if you have Apple Music, they're creating a playlist of music for every episode. I don't have Apple Music, but I just went into it and like screenshotted it. So I'm going to make my own. Okay. So, but yeah, so they're making a playlist for every episode. So, yeah. And so how many are they releasing? Are they releasing another 3 this week?
I believe that's 3, and then 2.
Okay.
3, and then 2, according to the nerdy Facebook group that I am on. So
which nerdy Facebook group is that? I might need to join that one.
I'm the Facebook groups that I am a big fan of The Ringer. It was the Ringer website, and they have a bunch of podcasts. So there's The Watch, and there's the Ringerverse, and there's Prestige TV podcast, and I'm on all of those Facebook groups. Some of them I don't really even listen to the podcasts. I just like the Facebook group for it. So
okay, well, if you think there's one I would like, add me to it.
Okay, I will. I will. And yeah, so I'm going to stop recording. Well, don't worry about it. That's the end of that.